ho, hey, hey, ya, he, yo. Oh,
OCM, Haichka to Jessica Cross Macaulay for drumming us in. Misapka Qualam legislators, welcome to the legislators that are present and welcome to the legislators that are online. I am sad to hear that we have 6 legislators that have come down with a cold or flu, but they're here online nonetheless, and we're really glad to have their presence. Thanks for those legislators that are here in person. We're really grateful to have you here. I would first like to thank our young one, Dayton Jacobs-Mayall, for blessing the food before we started our meals today. And just want to say thank you to Jessica Macaulay. This was her first time drumming in this kind of context. She's been practicing on her own, and when asked, she said that she would help us out in order to unite our hearts and bring that good medicine for us today. So, Haichka, Jessica, we're also very grateful that you did that to us. Thank you to O'Shea Aza Catering for providing us another wonderful meal to nourish our bodies. It's always nice to have a full stomach when we are doing this work, and the song helps nourishes our spirits. This is our number 7th meeting of our spring 2025 session. 2025? 2026. There's a typo, Connor. As with every session, I look forward to hearing all your legislative input. But before we proceed with tonight's agenda, we have another first. And although we're used to hearing our songbird sing songs for us, this is her first time to do an opening prayer for us. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome and invitation for Connie Adams to come and start our meeting with a prayer. Haichka, Connie?
Haichka River for the Feather. First of all, for those who don't know me, Connie Thanasqueet Talitsen at Tsawwassen. My name is Connie and I'm from Tsawwassen. My mother is Candy Adams, her mother is Quistania Ruth Adams, and her mother was Constance Jacobs. I would also like to give a shout out to the late Chief Ken Baird and AA, as their prayers have provided me with the spiritual strength to keep moving forward every day. OCM. Creator, hear my prayer today. Creator, I ask that you please bless the hands that prepared the food tonight. I ask that you please bless this community, the land we live on, and the water that surrounds it. I ask that you please grant us all the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Seat talat to seat salt CM. Ni wealth I met to na swael. At satsa ten to muxt. We thank the Creator for another beautiful day on Mother Earth. Haichka CM.
OCM, thank you so much for those words and taking good care of us and starting our meeting in a good way. We really appreciate that. I would like to also extend a very warm welcome to my nephew, River Dom. This is also River's very first time to be our feather runner. So thank you very much for taking time out of your evening to come and support the legislature, your government, in doing the work that we've got to do today. Legislators, I ask that when it's your turn to speak, please raise your hand very high. And then for the legislators that might speak online, if we could just guide River to their seat so he could stand behind their seat with the feather. As usual, please wait to get the feather from River before you speak to staff and legislators, and then return it back to our feather runner after you've done. And please make sure that all your phones are on silent. We really appreciate that as well. So let's get started into our agenda. We will start this evening off with the annual report from the Tsawwassen Economic Development Corporation. Then we'll move into the second reading of Schedule 13 Economic Development. Then we'll hear a report from the Advisory Council on Bill 003-2026, the Community Safety Amendment Act 2026. And following that, we'll have the second reading of Bill 003-2026, Then we'll hear a report on previous resolutions, and after that, we'll have the introduction of a legislature resolution. Lastly, we'll hear an update on the emergency management program. Are there any questions from legislators regarding tonight's agenda? Seeing none, let's move right into the annual report from the Tsawwassen Economic Development Corporation. I would now like to call upon Ryan Daum, Manager of Economic Development, to come up and present this report.
Heichka Squeakle. So as always, as we typically do every year, I'm presenting a report on the Economic Development Corporation's 2025 year-end annual report. As a bit of background, the TFN's Economic Development Act sets out a number of obligations around the annual report. The first is within 2 months of October 29th, we're filing an annual report with audited annual financial statements with the CAO. Further, we also provide a copy of the annual report to EC and to be tabled with Legislature, which we're doing now. A bit of an background or analysis of this. This is a historical requirement that's a bit less relevant now that economic development functions as a department. However, at the same time, it's a good exercise for transparency. It allows us to summarize the activities of economic development at Tsawwassen First Nation. At the same time, it's a nice way to facilitate access to our audited financial statements for the year. Most of my presentation is really in the following section, so that's my update. It should be on your SharePoint site with some of the activities during that year.
All right, thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate your presentation. Legislators, do you have any questions on the annual report that Ryan just gave you a brief update on? Okay, well, thank you very much for that update, Ryan. We'll now move on to the next item, so don't go anywhere, Ryan. Stay put. We are now going to hear an update on the second reading of Schedule 13th Economic Development, Schedule of Bills 001-2026. And a reminder to all legislators, this is your time to ask any kind of questions, have any kind of clarification so that you can be confident in your voting on this this part of the schedule, Schedule 13. Ryan, go ahead.
Heichka Squeakle, and to reiterate or echo what the Squeakle said, I'm always happy to answer questions, always. So to start with, I'm very pleased to be here tonight to present Schedule 13 on economic development. To start with, it might be helpful to give you a little bit of an overview of the department and how we operate. So we have a core budget, and it's kind of represented in the center, and then we have some offshoots of areas that we work on. We have 3 different teams. We have a member business development team, we have a land development team, and then we have a territory business opportunities team. And they're laid out in the 3 circles on the slideshow here. What's layered through all of it is innovation, technology, and sustainability. We try to layer that within everything we do. That's based on Tsawwassen values. The structure of our department is, obviously I'm the manager of economic development. I report up to the director of finance, who reports up to the CEO and then to chief and council. And ultimately, I'm here in front of legislature to present responsible and accountable to membership. Within my team, it's actually quite a small team. We have an economic development analyst in Terry Baird. We have a project administrator in Elizabeth Fredrickson, and a community business development coordinator in Jody Garner. I'll just note here that our team is supplemented with consultants and staff from across the organization. And so we actually have kind of a melding of cross-functional teams because a lot of the activities we do need support across the organization. So a little bit of a comparison year over year between the current year ending 2026 and the upcoming budget year that we're presenting on. So overall, the ask for expenditures is going to be down by 1.41%. Now within that, there's some key differences. Within core, we're asking this year for a new position, so a development coordinator. The rationale being that with that is the various opportunities that are in front of us. We want to be able to capture them. And I guess the other thing is we want internalize some of the capacity and reduce reliance on external consultants who have specialized expertise, but there's certain things that we can bring in-house. Next, with the member business development program, we've reduced that by about 40,000 this year. There's certain grants, and we found that we can run the program with external financing. We've had support from the Martin Family Initiative, Kwantlen Polytechnic University to fund some of our programming. But on the same time, buried within that 440,000 from last year and 400 this year is a continuing budget of 350,000 for member grants and loans and funding. So that's remaining the same. Within the land development program, the key update this year would be is we are now moving from strategy into implementation of the industrial land strategy. So that means that we plan to go to market based on a tremendous amount of work in a responsible way to market the next parcel of industrial lands. The second to last bullet is territory business opportunities. Over the last year, with a number of major projects on our doorstep, we've engaged with them, and we've engaged early, and at the same time, we've had a significant amount of interest from corporations and industry to somehow in some fashion partner with TFN. So we want to make sure that we take advantage of that while we can. It brings in revenues for all community members. We always try to respect individual members, but also benefits for 550 plus and growing members. And that's where those revenues go. At the same time, when we have affiliates, we encourage and we share our values that we want them to bring our smaller businesses along in areas that they can't bid on. And finally, the last item here would be innovation technology, studies and consulting for clean energy. Again, we understand it's super important to our membership. So there's a budget item there. But again, that may be it's a bit of an optional one. The first couple ones are mandatory to get to, but I'll touch on that in a little bit later. So overall, our ask is down by 1.41%, so essentially the same. So highlights from last year. We completed, in essence, the TFN Employment Industrial Land Strategy. We spent the fall of 2025 engaging on this strategy. Many of you may be sick of hearing about it, but no one can say they didn't hear about it. So we engaged early with Ledge, with council, strategy meetings. We presented at the members gathering, which is exciting, to a big crowd. The most exciting part that no one saw was actually engaging with our youth in a very small room and seeing their eyes light up about what their future holds. This is 7 generations forward, so it's really important to keep them involved. And then further this year, where we finished providing an update across our various committees, Advisory Council, Natural Resources Committee, Agricultural Advisory Committee, the Housing Advisory Committee. It has a new name now. I apologize for not reading. But the point is, we met with them face to face and we talked about it. And every group had their own interests. So the Advisory Council had specific interests that may be a little bit different than the Natural Resources Committee. And everybody had an interest. And we had to share how we thoughtfully manage those. So this year is we completed KPU business training in community, and this is the second year that we've done that. The first year, we started with about 15 members enrolled, which we were ecstatic about, and I was very nervous that the enrollment would drop off, but it didn't. So excited to see some of our young people now taking part of that and get engaged in the program. We've also entered into a number of revenue sharing agreements that are new to us. Here's a handful. One is Evergreen. It's an environmental company that has a revenue sharing for the works at the Fraser River Tunnel project. And what's really exciting is it was about revenue, but they stopped, they paused, and they allowed staff from Natural Resources Territory Management to go to site instead of cutting down native species. They were able to take them, transplant them, and bring them back to the community. I think it was close to 1,500 different plants were brought back to the community, and I know it was meaningful for that department. We've also been working with Parkland and Nations Clean Energy with hydrogenation-derived renewable diesel. So over at the port, over the lifetime, it's expected it's roughly a 65 to 70% reduction in emissions over the lifetime. So that's super exciting too. We implemented a short-term leasing program, and we leaned heavily in our lands department to stand up a new temporary use policy. We tested it out for the first time, and we had a tenant out there, had an 18-month lease, and they delivered about $1.5 million in works in lieu of rent for that period. So it was no cost to the nation. It was exciting too because the nation took a lead. It was involved in the works at Roberts Bank, converting a portion of the coal terminal to potash. So I think that's a success story that we're involved, and I think it's a cool project moving away from coal. This year, we also engaged on a number of infrastructure projects. Traditionally, we've been involved, we've communicated, but I think exciting, we actually brought the proponents in community to this very room to speak directly to our members. And I think the takeaway there is we brought them in early. We didn't have all the answers right now, but that was intentional. We said, let's talk about people as early as we can in the process. The later you are, the less influence you have. And then I think the final highlight of this year was just the success of the BD industrial procurement in the process there. And what I mean by that is member benefits to engage on the project. So there was preload benefits, there was site servicing infrastructure, there was catering, there was street sweeping, there's water trucks, there was artist works. And I think it's unexpected that we hit $17 million in contracts for member businesses and community businesses. So super excited. And I think it works well when we take the time to pick a good partner. Okay. So the first program I want to speak to is our member business program. And just a bit of a highlight of how it operates. So the first step is engagement to learn about membership. I think that's a missing step, is that outreach, talk to people if this is the right pathway for them. The next one is training with the KPU course. It's actually underway right now. And so it's our second time running it. A little bit of a plug, we're doing virtual lunch and learns next week for about an hour each about how to engage with federal government on procurement. They have a target to have 5% of their procurement being Indigenous based. But the question is, how do you get in there and how do you take advantage of it? So feel free to sign up right now if you're working or lunch or you're interested. It's ongoing. I'm going to take it myself. So the next one would be capital grants and loans. So this one here, I just want to talk very quickly on the numbers. My apologies. So we had budgeted about $350,000 for this program. We allocated to members to start or expand businesses about $332,000. Of that, there were 3 equity matching programs, there were 2 loans, and there were about 5 small business grants given out to members. And then finally, there were the business development opportunities, and we touched on those both on lands with BD, but also with the Surrey Langley SkyTrain, with the tunnel project, and there'll be other offsetting works coming out of works on our foreshare in the future. So in the future, we wanted to understand some of the indicators. So I think that some of the ones we're leaning on is like, what are the number of businesses started, but also the earlier indicators about how many members are supported and the number of members accessing funding, which we do a pretty good job of tracking now. Program 2 is land development. Again, we have a filter of everything we do or a lens to evaluate, and that is we're managing TFN's land assets for the benefit of 7 generations forward. And the mandate is to generate the greatest wealth for those next 7 generations while balancing it with culture, community, and the environment. So that's kind of the lens that we look at. We have a really neat program or a structure in the Legacy Trust that allows us to flow those revenues into there so you can understand that they're secured for your benefit for the future. Again, we're looking to go from strategy to action this year, now that the strategy is wrapped up. At the same time, where we're looking at those long-term lease revenues, we expect this year we have a pretty good certainty that the short-term leasing program that was delivered, the works were delivered in lieu of rent, we're now going to be getting, we expect to get revenues this year in cash by the end of the year for extending that term. And I think it's the final bullet's very, very important. It makes the whole piece work, which is effective engagement and communications with TFN stakeholders, so internally around this table and the different committees, but also the development community. Moving on to program number 3. Oh, thank you. I needed that. Sorry. So program number 3 is territory business opportunities. And again, these are numerous infrastructure projects in Tsawwassen territory. And again, some of the rationale is generally there's Indigenous procurement benefits, but they also impact TFN's treaty rights. And that's one of the reasons we work very closely with the territory management team and their staff. So again, there's provincial government targets that we're working on, and then we're also entering into those affiliation agreements for revenue sharing with industry at this time. And again, one of our processes we put into place is how do we provide fair and equal access to opportunities for both member businesses and TFN government affiliates. So again, we work with territory management quite closely, and I would say we rely heavily on what we have as an environmental assessment opportunities policy that gives us a little bit of structure about how to share those opportunities out in the community. And I think I jumped to the last point, but again, we need to work very closely and collaboratively with our territory management department. The final program is Innovation, Technology, and Sustainability. The concept here is to explore what that looks like at TFN. It could be a multi-year objective to advance sustainability initiatives where possible. And again, I guess the final point there is to say is we've already identified areas for sustainable development already and early before this plan, or areas where we can future-proof. So for instance, in our planning, how do we set aside reserve corridors for district energy? We know we're not there yet, but how do we future-proof and plan again for that next 7 generations? And Heichka, and just thank you for your time, and there you go.
Thank you so much, Heichka, for that presentation, Ryan. We really appreciate the reviewing the highlights of the successes and the detailed planning into the 4 or 5 different programs that 4 programs that you have presented to the legislatures. There's a lot of great work going on. Legislatures, do you have any questions or points of clarification that you wish to ask Ryan at this time about this schedule? Legislature Sultanat, Loretta Williams, please raise your hand high. Thank you.
Okay, Heichka for the feather. And yes, thank you for the presentation. I didn't ask you any questions the last time, but be prepared. No, just kidding. So anyways, it's a lot of work you guys are doing in support of our members. My question is, you know, like leaving the village today, down 41B, seeing construction on, I guess, the west side, and seeing that thing, what are they doing? You know, like, it was just like a tower or some kind of, I'm not sure what it was, you know. Are you guys doing construction there? Okay, Heichka.
Heichka Legislator, Ryan, can you picture where she's talking about?
I think it's what I would term the southwest quadrant. So is your 41B, it's west of 41B? I think there's some. Okay.
Okay,
I
are you guys going to do a thumb wrestle as to who is going to answer that question?
I might, we have a short-term lease out there before I hand it over to Sean.
Oh. All right,
I just-
Sean, can you please come
Let me make
over
sure I get it
and
right.
support Ryan? Oh, no, there we go, thank you. Yeah.
Aichka, Squeakle. Yes, Ryan, I think she's referring to they have equipment on the H&H short-term temporary use permit. So that's part of Economic Development's team. They made a deal with a short-term lease. And so they're putting together equipment for upgrades to the port. That's all I really know. Ryan could probably speak more to it than I could, but thank you.
Heichka, Sean. Ryan, do you have anything more to add to that?
Sure. Thank you, Sean. You can see why it takes a team. I just wasn't sure exactly the spot, but that's H&H Installations. And so what they're doing is that's a temporary laydown yard. And what they're doing is they're bringing in containers from China that have steel components or steel beams in them. And they're using it to kind of sort them out like a jigsaw puzzle. They put them onto trucks. They drive them down to the causeway to Roberts Bank. And they're turning, the coal port there? They're turning part of it into potash. So they're stopping the coal part of it, and they're moving to potash, which can be used for fertilizer that's being exported. So it's really exciting that they're using our lands for that piece of work. And the idea is it takes a long time to do these long-term leases. So can we generate some revenue where it makes sense for us? So we picked them because they're good partners, protecting the environment, erosion and sediment control and drainage. So they're good partners, and it's kind of a cool project. If they're doing stuff there, we kind of want to be involved. And it's probably a good thing moving away from coal as well. So,
Heichka or Ryan, any other questions? Legislature Kwiakwia, Andrea Jacobs.
Heichka Squeakle CM, Heichka River, for the feather, and Ryan for your presentation. Just wondering about the member, I think you said 5 small businesses access the small business grant. I think it's 7,500 now. Just hearing a little bit that it's not easy to access, just some concerns about that it takes a while. I think there's a 2-year projection. There's a lot for that amount of money, which is just barely enough for a startup. Just a comment that I've heard, so just relaying that information as well. It might be nice if it was easier, and I think it comes out in 3 different disbursements. Yeah, so I don't know how easy that is for member businesses to start having that amount of money split up into 3. And then, so just a comment on that. And then just also from your previous, I was reading your report on ECDEV from your annual report from last year, and just seeing, I think, like for example, the TFN MatCon got over $7 million in contracts. I'm still of the opinion that TFN is directly taking money out of member businesses. We have a number of construction companies that are owned by members down here. $7 million is a lot. I'd be wondering how much of that was actually benefited members. I don't know if any members work for TFN MatCon, so just wondering, yeah, how our member businesses are doing. I don't know if Tawasin needs that, but yeah, so just another question on that. And last one is, can you give me an update on the board of directors? I think I ask this every year, but I apologize. Just wondering how that works. Heichka, Squeakle CM.
Heichka Legislature for those comments and questions. Ryan?
So I'll work through the list, starting with the small business grant program. We're working on policy that we'd like to see it moved up to about $10,000 per member. And I'll say that the program doesn't necessarily stand on it's a full program. So you have the small business grant program, and the idea is we can take a member business, get them to learn the fundamentals, and then we move them into the equity match. So hopefully they take the 10,000, maybe they get like equipment like a truck worth 25,000. They move into the equity match the next year, and then we layer on another 25,000. And then after that, they move into the forgivable loan portion. So it's not just necessarily one element; it's kind of a complete element. And as far as the tranches go, it's always it's business specific. So if they need a piece of equipment that's 5,000, we wouldn't hold that back. We'd make sure they could purchase that piece of equipment. And I think the next one was just touching on, I may get this wrong, so the MatCon joint venture. So generally, I think that I can comment on how we're operating, less so about whether the content or the structure of it being there. So very much they make bids and they bid on work. I'm not super involved in that, to be quite honest. I make sure, and when I say that, that's intentional. I want them to be arm's length from me. So what I do is I monitor their activities and making sure that it's coming through. But I don't actually, when they're putting an estimate together, I'm not super involved, and I let the process work itself out. So I let it run through the procurement policy that's been at this table and it's been debated, and I kind of follow instructions and what the policy says.
Ryan, if I could just add, I think whether you don't have that information is what type of benefit does the JV provide to members? And you may not have that information, but that was one of the questions.
The primary one is going to be through revenues to the nation, and that's split between 550 members. Traditionally, it has a higher percentage than our affiliates do. We're taking a little bit more risk with them. And so for the last year, they flowed $761,000 to members that eventually makes its way to the Legacy Trust. So that was the last year. And I think I forgot the last question. My apologies.
Legislature, could you repeat the last question for Ryan?
Board of Directors.
Oh.
Haichka, Squeakle, CM.
Haichka Legislator. All right, Ryan.
So now Haichka, Feather Runner. So we don't necessarily have the same active board of directors that we traditionally have, because the corporate side's kind of it's dormant. It's still there, but just a dormant entity at this stage. The folks that are really doing that piece of work are what we call an advisory committee. And so they play a similar role, but they are non-binding, and their only role is to provide advice to executive council on decisions. In essence, the board of directors. So the board of directors are de facto executive council at this point, but all the decisions that we have, we run through advisory committee, and then we attach that advice on all decisions that go up to council. Haichka.
Haichka, for those responses, Ryan. Any other questions, legislators? Legislator Saltonat. Loretta Williams. It was almost a tie, but Loretta's hand went up just a little bit faster.
Okay, Haichka for the Feather. So you mentioned that there's 1,500 plants brought to the community. So how many species of plants and where did they come from? Okay, Haichka.
Haichka
Are
Legislator.
they, just wait a second, are they indigenous to our land, first of all? Okay, thanks.
Haichka Legislator Ryan.
Haichka. There was 3 different species of plants. They're all indigenous. I rely on our natural resources and territory management team because I don't have that specialty. I think there were 800 Nootka roses. I believe there was some other variations as well, types of berries and such. And I think they're looking to put those, whether it's at the farm or whether they need them on the environmental compensation works along the berm. but they were all identified as native species for here. And they're all brought to Tsawwassen lands.
Hajka, Ryan, Legislature Luquolia, Tia Williams.
Hajka Squeakosium, and thank you, Federal Runner, and thanks, Ryan, for your report and presentation. Not so much questions, more comments. It's really nice to hear and see some of the photos that were taken about bringing proponents in early for discussion to engage on infrastructure projects. And one thing I really like to see is the part of Program 3 is the standards being set for member businesses and TFN government affiliates, just by creating best practices moving forward on any other projects that take place in our territory. I guess I was kind of looking at all of the work that you do and the need for a territory business, what was it, development coordinator? I would support that because this is a great deal of work that you oversee. And I guess my one question is, how many are attending the current KPU business training? And is that still going on? Hajka, that's feather.
Hajka Legislator Ryan.
Hajka, and thanks for the question. I love policy and procedure. I think it's a really great opportunity to start early on that. And I like transparency. So our team is working, not just in isolation, again, with territory management, whether it's the lands team. And the goal is to make it transparent and visible. So when someone asks a question about how did an opportunity go out or how this happened, generally they already know how it should go out. And we just verify how it did and can provide proof of that process. And I think it makes it quicker and speedier getting the opportunities out there when you have a set process. So I love that conversation. We're looking for a development analyst or somebody to help out on the land development side. There's a ton of work there, and we'd like to bring some of it in-house and bring internal capacity going forwards. Oh geez, on the hot seat here, I think my memory's going.
How many members are participating in the KPU course, and is it still ongoing?
Yeah, it's definitely ongoing. I think we're probably in our third class now. I'm going to speculate that we have, depending on the day, the numbers are about between ideally 8 to 10, but the numbers can fluctuate. Oh, thank you. Members in that course. I think what I really like too is there's lots of young folks in it that we haven't seen before, and folks I haven't. Traditionally, we've had lots of women in the program, which is awesome. I expect it, but now we're seeing some young men coming out too, which is very cool.
Hajka Ryan, Legislator Taylor Baker.
Hajka River for the feather. Great to see you as the feather runner this evening, and thank you, Ryan, for the presentation. I can contest that Ryan has done this presentation many, many times at different committees, and very appreciative of the community engagement you've done. It's very informative and important. I'm glad that you've gotten a lot of feedback from members on this. I will be in support of this motion. I have a question outside of the presentation. I'm wondering, with the development and the completion of the BD facility, wondering if we could get a tour of the facility with the BD group at all. It's one of the biggest that we have on lands, and it's a beautiful building, so I'd be interested in taking a tour if possible. Hajka.
Hajka Legislator Ryan, do you have a response to that?
Mm-hmm. Hajka, Councillor Baker. I think they would love to give you in the community a tour of the building. I'm going to speak on their behalf, but just the relationship we have. I'll also highlight that I think it's tentative, and maybe it's out of my place. Other people are coordinating, but they're going to unveiling the art towards the end of this month, which is going to be outstanding from what they've told me. So we can make that public in the community, and I know they're hiring TFN caterers, so they're going to reach out if you're on our member business list to do that piece of work. So just an early warning or heads up. But I absolutely believe they'd love to show what they've done out there. HK.
Ryan, Legislature Pelihuia, Don Williams.
Haichka Squeakle Sim, Haichka River for the Feather. Thanks, Ryan, for your presentation. I appreciate all that your department does for our members and supporting their businesses and helping them along the way. Some of my questions were answered. I was curious about the small businesses grant as well. I was going to find out how long it was at 7,500 and if it should be looked at to increase that amount, but you had already mentioned that. Just another comment. I know it's not like under you, but just a comment overall about our member businesses or our members who are providing services. I'd just like to see more postings for RFPs and to provide fair access. There's certain things that are done by people outside of the nation or other Indigenous people from other nations, when I know some of our members could be providing these things. So just to follow along our procurement policy and our Members Guarantee Act to make every best effort to improve the quality of life of all members and to support businesses and individuals. Haichka.
Haichka Legislator. Ryan, do you have any comments on that, or just receiving that as a comment?
HK, I think mainly received, but I agree. How do we get those opportunities out there? We're absolutely working on that. It's probably a combination of using technology to support people, and I think it's technology, but it's also the old school picking up the phone and phoning someone and saying, have you seen this? We think it's a good fit for you, but making sure that it's hit the community notice, and so you're not just picking one. That's typically how we do it, is we make sure it hits the community notice, hits all of our communication channels. Everybody knows about it, but then we pick up the phone and we try to pull people out and say, we think this is a really good fit for you. Are you interested? So we want more of that. HK.
Haichka, Ryan. Legislature Tehuilam, Bryce Williams online.
Haichka Squeakle Sim and Haichka the right patient. Just curious on the meeting that happened. Sorry, the meeting with the happening within our territory. Just wondering how that went. The building of TFN, was it and was it that? Sorry, I got a weird. I'm asking the question. Just curious if this expressed that the first when it comes to opportunities out there that our people in business the most live and breathe here and see the port every day. I would just like to see our people benefiting foremost before any other. I hope that was expressed at the
Haichka Legislature Tehuilam. Unfortunately, we were having trouble hearing you. You were cutting out again, like in and out. I'm wondering if you could try again and maybe turn off your video and see if that would help, if you wouldn't mind repeating your question.
Hello, is there any problems?
So far, keep going. I'll let you know. Try.
Just curious how the meeting went on the member meeting when it comes to structure project. in the community or in our territory. I'm hoping well attended.
I'm sorry, Legislator Bryce. Unfortunately, the audio is not great for that. Would you mind, we'll take the next question. If you want to type in your question into the chat, then we'll make sure that it's heard, because your audio is breaking up. Thank you, Legislator. Legislature Claclia, Andrea Jacobs.
Hachka Squeaklesiam, Hachka River for the feather. I hate to keep dwelling on this, but I know it's a concern in the community, and so that's why I keep bringing it up. And I appreciate what Paliquia mentioned in regards to the member businesses, and I can appreciate what you say, Ryan, trying to keep the procurement policy at arm's length. I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm a little concerned about the procurement policy itself, and I think I put that in a resolution, so I'm looking forward to the resolution updates. And I'm glad to see that there's training and support for starting businesses, but I would really like to see someone to be there for our member businesses currently running, so that they can continue to run successfully. That's so important, and that's one of the hardest things when you're running a small business. Or large business, just to keep it going. Again, I don't know, I don't see that the procurement policy is working. I know that there's direct awards happening, even if they're small. I know that there can be direct awards that is competing with our member businesses. They're just awarded to, even if they're small, they're still contracts, they add up. All of those small contracts add up, even for catering businesses or what have you. I would just like to see those go to our member businesses. End of story. So I am just expressing my support in wanting to see more support for our member businesses. I remember the days when I used to work, a few of us, me and Taylor and Ryan, we, working in ECDEV years and years ago, we did keep track, and we had those meetings with member businesses and really worked with them in sharing those contracts. And I don't know if that still happens. I don't think it does. I just want to really see that support for our member businesses, and just want to express that. Hachka Squeaklesiam.
Hachka Legislature, I don't know if you have, or maybe later on you could provide, an update on what's happening with some of the processes, how many member businesses, there's some statistics on this type of information so that we can see where we're doing well and where their gaps might be, and give more information to our legislators on this, because it's true what Legislator Kwakwe said, is it's a topic that keeps coming up. So perhaps we should be providing some more data on that to either appease their questions or open up an opportunity for some different types of growth or programming. But thank you very much. Ryan, did you have a response to Legislator Andrea? Anything else to add? Okay.
Sorry, I'm just grabbing the feather. I think I don't, and the reason I'm saying that is I think the respectful thing is just to accept the feedback. Hachka.
Okay. I'm hoping that I can hear from Legislature Tequilum. We're going to try it one more time. Tequilum, Bryce Williams, legislator, is online.
Hello, trying my headset now. Does that sound better?
Oh my goodness, that does sound really good. Thank you, Hachka Legislator.
Actually, I'm just curious on the meeting that happened recently with the proponents for T2, I believe it was. Just questions around if the meeting was well attended, and just if it was expressed that TFN members and their businesses should be benefiting first and foremost for any other First Nation, and that we need to seek jobs, not only for the building of it, but as, for the operations as well. And seek like, opportunities with the ILWU and get good jobs for our people. So just wondering if those were in part of the discussions of that meeting. Heichka.
Hitchcock Legislature, that was a really good sounding audio. Thank you very much for putting on your headset. It really did make a difference. Ryan?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. So we had two different sessions. One was on Roberts Bank Terminal 2, and one was on the Fraser Tunnel Replacement Project. I think the one that you're referencing, though, is the Terminal 2 project. And I would say that there were mixed feelings at that event. And I think they were mixed feelings because there was a discussion both on the project and procurement. They're both there. And I think members rightfully wanted to express their concern on the project. And that was one part of it. There's also the procurement piece of it. That means with the project like that going through, we want to maximize every benefit of it and have members involved in all aspects. And that's kind of the attempt to do so. I think too, we knew it was going to be, it would be a workshop with mixed feelings, but I think regardless, we said, let's lean into that and be transparent about the process and engage early. Because I think when you we want to provide answers and be in front of people face to face, not on a screen, where we can answer those questions. So that was the intent, and it's the first of probably many different workshops and ways to engage with our membership. As far as the attendance, it was a packed house. It was a mix of members and affiliates that we're working with. And the intent was to see if there are opportunities for our affiliates to make relationships with our member businesses. Because some of these projects are so large, a member business doesn't know how to start or get onto them. But if they can team up or subcontract to a partner who we're influencing to get out there, they can bring them along. And so that's just one of many strategies to bring our members onto those projects. With respect to members benefiting first of this nation, I fully agree. And again, one of the things we like to do is bring either the port proponents on lands. Because it's totally different when you can step out this window right here. As I sit here, I can see the port. And it just makes it so much more real having them here. So if you're a group that's never been down here or you're international, you just don't get it. As soon as you're on lands, it becomes very, very real where we are. I can also say that I believe we're the first nation that hosted anything like that with the port in T2. And I understand that the port replicated what we were doing here in other nations because we were doing it first in advance. So at all times, I think TFN's mostly impacted by this, and that's the position we take.
Heichka, Ryan, for that response. All right, legislatures, we've been talking about this for a little while. Are there any other questions that have come up that legislators need to ensure that they have enough information and a clear understanding about the schedule in order to vote? Legislator Saltanat, Loretta Williams.
Okay, Heichka for the feather and for allowing my last question in this area. I know we talked about greenhouses in the past, but you never mentioned it in this presentation. So is that a viable active activity? You know, like, and if we do have it, where would the greenhouses go? Okay, Heichka.
Heichka Legislature, Ryan?
Heichka, thank you for the question. Legislature, I would say that it is viable, and there's a lot of good reasons to pursue it. At the time we were pursuing it, we're in a little bit of a pause, as there was uncertainty with the U.S. trade situation, and a lot of the vegetables head down there. So it was unclear which way we were going to pivot. And again, when I met with folks again, we said that we're meeting very, very early in the process, earlier than we may typically meet with them, just to see if it made sense for members, whether we should kind of chase that. But that was kind of the situation at the time. We still want to revisit it, but we're in a little bit of a different situation now that we're bringing our industrial lands to market. So we want to focus all of our efforts on bringing those lands to market responsibly. And then as soon as that's done, we'd like to pivot. Hajka.
Thanks, Ryan, for those questions. Thank you, legislators, for all of that in-depth work and all of those questions. Thank you, Ryan, for a good presentation and listening to the legislators and providing clarification to your future work. We're excited to see how you and your team and your collaborative way of doing work within the organization will advance advancing our economic development interests, supporting our procurement processes, our members' interests. So thank you so much, Ryan. We really appreciate that. I'd now like to read the motion to move Schedule 13th, the Economic Development Schedule of Bill 001-2026 to third reading. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature has the authority under Section 512C of the Constitution Act to enact Tsawwassen laws, and whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature under Section 24(2) of the Financial Administration Act must approve the annual budget, and whereas under Section 23 of the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual 2025, each bill must receive 3 separate readings. And whereas the Legislature resolved on February 10, 2026, that each schedule of Bill 001-2026 be reviewed, debated, and voted on separately during second reading. Therefore, be it moved that the Tsawwassen Legislature moves Schedule 13, the Economic Development Schedule, to third reading. May I please have a mover? Moved by Legislator Lacolia Tia Williams. May I please have a seconder? Second by Legislator Palihuia Don Williams. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. And those online, I'll be calling out your names. And if you could just tell me your vote. Legislature Chief Laura Cassidy, Squamish.
I approve.
Legislature Tequilium, Bryce Williams. Legislature Louise Hokumatia.
I approve.
Legislature Mary Ann Adams.
I approve.
Legislature Spalachowicz, Terry Splachton.
I approve.
Legislature Pismalot, Kathy Genge.
I agree.
All right, that's wonderful, Kathy. I'm glad you figured out your mic. Wonderful. Thank you, Legislature. That motion has now been carried. Well done. All right, legislators, let's move to the next item on our agenda. We're going to read the report from the Advisory Council on Bill 003-2026, the Community Safety Amendment Act. I would now like to call upon Mary Childs, General Counsel, to present the report from the Advisory Council. Mary?
Hajka, Squeakle, and Hajka to the Feather Runner for the Feather. I'm happy to be able to report to legislators a positive response from Advisory Council to this bill. On February 25th, the Advisory Council met to discuss this, among other things, and there were 12 members present, including 4 members, elected members of Advisory Council. And one of the things that was on the agenda that they discussed was Bill 003, the Community Safety Amendment Act, which, as legislators will remember, amends TFN's community safety legislation to broaden its scope from drug activity to other types of harmful activity. And you have a report here with a number of comments, and I'll just briefly run through them. Generally, the members of Advisory Council were in support of the bill, and several of them commented that this was a positive first step in enforcing community safety more broadly beyond just drug activity on lands. One member asked whether Delta Police are required under the criminal code to enforce no trespass orders, and staff responded that Police do have arrest powers under the criminal code if they have evidence of a criminal act, but enforcement of TFN's no trespass orders is not a criminal matter. It's a matter of Tsawwassen law, and Tsawwassen does not have the power to make criminal law. But we have a service agreement with Delta Police under which they have agreed to enforce certain Tsawwassen laws, including the community safety legislation. And staff work with Delta Police to ensure that their officers understand the basis for the no trespass orders and can take corrective action as needed when someone who is subject to a no trespass order is present on Tsawwassen lands. But that's not the same as arresting somebody for a criminal offense. It's a different matter. And the proposed amendments would broaden the circumstances under which Executive Council can issue a no trespass order, but it still wouldn't make it a criminal matter. It's a trespass matter, and that's different than a criminal offense. Nobody's going to end up with a criminal record or go to jail because of a no trespass order. One member asked whether the amendments would protect the community if the person who is engaging in the harmful activity is a member, a Tsawwassen member living on lands. And staff explained that Executive Council has approved a two-phase stage to this part of the community safety strategy. And the first part is to enforce this broader range of no trespass orders against non-members. And then there will be a process of consultation and further review of the law to bolster and enforce a range of options for enforcing laws against members on lands. So eventually, it will be possible for Executive Council to use its community safety powers to address many different types of harmful activity by members and non-members, and broadening this act out does broaden the scope more generally, but the expectation is that the first phase is to broaden this out and use it as a basis for no trespass orders against non-members, and there's going to be a process, as legislators have heard before, of community consultation about the appropriate fair procedures that will be needed to enforce them against members. Finally, some members described that they had experienced incidents or heard about incidents where individuals on lands were behaving erratically and possibly aggressively, making members feel unsafe. And there was some concern about the amount of time that it takes for these situations to be addressed. Concerns about how frequently the current DPD Aboriginal Liaison Officer was in the community. Staff responded that police do have powers to act if someone is behaving in a way that poses an immediate safety threat or if they're committing a criminal act. But the no trespass orders made under this law are not intended to address that kind of very immediate situation. They are a tool to prevent individuals from continuing to engage in harmful behavior in the future. So in emergency situations, members should call 911. If they have concerns in a non-emergency situation, then they're encouraged to either call the Delta Police non-emergency number or to call the health services staff, as the TFN staff work closely with DPD to address these kinds of issues. And staff are working as part of the community safety strategy to develop a single point of contact for members to reach out to if they have any such concerns, and then that single point of contact could direct their calls either to Delta Police or the TFN enforcement team or the health services team as appropriate. And staff who were present at the advisory council meeting also indicated that they would speak to the current Aboriginal Liaison Officer about increasing their visibility in the community. And that concludes my report of the comments from Advisory Council. Be happy to address any questions that legislators might have.
Haichka, Mary, for presenting that report and working with our advisory council on seeking their advice on the amendment to this bill. Now I'd like to invite legislators to ask any questions that they might about clarifying questions on this report that you might have after you've heard Mary's presentation. Legislature of Saltonat, Loretta Williams.
Okay, thank you for the feather. Can you refresh our memory on who our new Aboriginal liaison officer is? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Legislator. Mary?
Haichka for the question, Legislator Sultanat. The current Aboriginal liaison officer for DPD is Chad Bristow.
Haichka. All right, legislators, any questions about the report and clarification about the report from Advisory Council before we move into the fuller debate of the amendment? Thank you, Mary. We will now move into the second reading of this bill. And I would like to invite legislatures now to I would like to open the floor now to legislatures to ask any questions about this bill and to make sure that you have enough information to vote on it. Legislators? This is about the Community Safety Amendment Act 2026, Bill 003, 2026. The amendments that have been shared earlier in this session and in the workshop. The amendments that help us expand our act in the first phase of the work that we're trying to do. Legislature of Saltonat, Loretta Williams.
Okay, Haichka for the feather. You know, these are really great rules and amendments and everything else, but I'm just wondering if the recommendations from advisory to our Delta Police, if they are going to have more visibility. So I'm just wondering what the process is for that. And is it a possibility of inviting all the people that are connected to our little office here, have them all come for meetings so we know who they are? You know, we've done that with the lands and other committees. So can we do that with the Delta Police? Is that feasible?
Haichka Legislature, would we like to ask Laquia, Crystal, Lynn-Gurniak to respond to the legislature, please? Thank you.
Haichka Squeakle and Haichka for the question, Haichka River for the feather. We definitely will do that. We will invite them to our next, and even some more community events, but we will definitely invite them to meet everybody, for sure. Ooh, for lunch? Maybe the elders' lunch? Okay, we will do that. Thank you.
Haichka Laquia, it's always good to deepen those relationships that we have with the people that are supporting the enforcement and protection of our lands. Legislature Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacobs.
Haichka Squeakle CM, Haichka Mary for the presentation, and Laquia. It's just good to see this. Just looking at, I was just thinking, it took me a little bit longer to process AC's recommendations and stuff, and just looking at this Amendment Act and everything all together. It's a slow process, but it's really important, so I'm being patient and understanding of that. At the same time, concerned about the safety of our people, and really appreciate the comments from AC in regards to that and the safety concerns. And I don't know if it's in here somewhere, but I also would like to see a little bit more follow-up. There have been a number of safety concerns, you know, with drug activity house close by, and we've had a number of safety concerns at my family's home, where they just literally feel unsafe and lock their houses. You know, the fences should be around our members' homes, not around the drug houses. Yeah, what's that costing the nation? But just looping back to what AC was saying, I really appreciate what they're saying. And maybe, I don't know if it's in here, but just would really encourage our liaison officers, any one of them, to loop back whenever there's a call in for those safety concerns, just to let those families know that it has been looked at. Maybe nothing happened, but it was looked at, and just to follow up with the families, I think would be really helpful. And then people aren't assuming that nothing's being done, because I know things are being done. So I think that would just really help with communication. So just a comment. I think that would really be helpful. Hajka Squeaklesiam.
Hajka Legislator, for those comments and suggestions and recommendations. Mary?
Hajka for the feather and Hajka for the comment. Legislator Jacobs. I am sure that we can speak to DPD about that. There are regular meetings in which DPD comes and meets with Executive Council, and I know that there are regular meetings between the liaison officer and Family Services. So we can certainly speak to them about ensuring that there's more follow-up in the community.
Hajka, Mary. Legislator Tequila, I saw your hand go up and went down again. Are you, do you have a question that you'd like to pose to the table?
Not really. I just had a comment and just thanking AC for their comments on their report. Just wondering what type of preventative measures are going to be taken that can be made a part of the community safety work that's underway. I'd just like to see a lot more preventative measures relating to when it comes to alcohol and substance abuse.
Hajka Legislature. Mary?
Hajka for the question. As legislators, I think I've heard a little bit earlier in this session, TFN has been working with expert external advisors on a very comprehensive community safety strategy, and that includes not just, this is just a small part of it, enforcement when prevention is not successful, because you can't prevent all problems, but there is a lot of work being done by the member services staff, both in health and family services and support, to try and address these issues. So, for example, planned opening soon of a men's support home and other things that are put in place, additional counseling support and health support for members. So the hope is that that will help people to, you know, address issues that they have, and that will prevent further safety incidents in future. Okay.
Hajka, Mary, so it's clear that it's important that preventative work needs to be part of our programming, as well as supportive work, and that we continue to strive to create a safer community, that it's been a long process, but it's been inclusive. We're working really hard with the different programs and committees and panels, and trying to find the right way forward. We really appreciate all the work that has gone into creating this, this plan for safety, and this Amendment Act is part of that. Any other questions before I read the motion on this Amendment Act? Thank you, Mary. Thank you to the Advisory Council for the report. Thank you, legislators, for the questions. As always, this is ongoing work. If you have questions after for staff or for Executive Council, please don't hesitate to reach out. The way to move forward is to do it together. So just because we are moving into approving this Amendment Act does not mean that the conversation is closed. Motion to move Bill 003-2026, the Community Safety Amendment Act 2026, to third reading. Whereas the Tsawwassen Legislature has the authority under Section 512C of the Constitution Act to enact Tsawwassen laws, and whereas under the Legislature Rules and Procedures Manual, Section 23, each bill must receive 3 separate readings. Therefore, be it moved that Bill 002-2026, the Community Safety Amendment Act 2026, proceed to third reading. May I please have a mover? Moved by Legislator Taylor Baker. May I please have a seconder? Seconded by Legislator Paliquia, Don Williams. All in favor, please raise your hand high. Thank you. Legislators online, I'll read out your name and please indicate your vote. Legislator Chief Laura Cassidy. Swamasat.
I approve.
Legislator Bryce Williams, Tequilum.
In favor.
Legislator Louise Alm, Hulkamatia.
I'm in favor.
Legislator Marianne Adams.
In favor.
Legislature Spiloptwit, Terry Splotkin.
In favor.
Legislature Thiesmelot, Kathy Genge.
In favor.
Thank you so very much, legislators. That motion has been passed. Let's take a 15-minute break. Haichka. All right, let me look at my table here. It's hard to tell because there's oh, I'm just waiting for one more legislator. Oh, there she is. That's good. All right, legislators, welcome back. We've accomplished a lot in this agenda so far, so let's move on to the next part of agenda. We are now going to hear a report on previous resolutions, and I would like to now call up Twyla Smith, the Director of Strategic Initiatives. That sounds good, doesn't it, Twyla? Director of Strategic Initiatives, to come up and present this report. Twyla?
Haichka Squeakle and Haichka to the Feather Runner. I'm still getting used to that myself, Squeakle. Good evening, legislators. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, and just wishing good health to everybody online. I know there's a lot of sickness going around, and I hope you all recover quickly. As you all know, resolutions are used to request Executive Council to consider legislative, regulatory, or policy options on a particular topic. To provide transparency and accountability to legislators, staff provide an information update on our actions to respond to the previous resolutions at each session. So the report is a bit longer this time around, so I'm just going to, instead of reading it, I'll just go over some of the highlights from the report, starting with the 3 resolutions from last session. So first, there was the resolution to evaluate cost effectiveness of engagement sessions. To respond to this, staff put together a report for Executive Council with an overview of the costs and attendance at recent engagement meetings, and we also did an analysis of where members are living. So we confirmed that the Okanagan and Bellingham areas do have the highest concentrations of members living off lands. In these conversations, Executive Council emphasized that cost effectiveness is always a key consideration in their decisions. They also emphasized that member engagement is a priority both on and off lands, and that member input is highly valued. While off-land sessions are typically more expensive than on lands, they serve members who have different circumstances and needs and often have lower levels of access to TFN services. We also heard from staff that in-person engagement is one of the most effective ways to build trust and relationship with members and to learn about the TFN community and culture. For the remainder of the term, there is 1 engagement planned in Bellingham and 1 in Kelowna, in addition to the family meetings and then on lands and virtual sessions. Executive Council has also directed staff to expand the digital tools available for engagement, both on and off lands. So as you saw in the Schedule 2 budget, we had requests related to a texting system, an email system, and the Social Pinpoint online platform. These tools will be used both to advertise the in-person sessions better and hopefully increase participation in all sessions, as well as to engage directly with members who are unable to attend any in-person sessions. On the resolution to explore creating a Director of Health Services, EC reviewed the resolution and received an update from the CAO. Under TFN's Organization Act, it is the CAO who is responsible for establishing and overseeing human resources, creating and maintaining the organization chart, and supervising and managing employees. Separation between elected officials and staffing is considered best practice in public administration and is established, as I mentioned, in Tsawwassen law. In practice, the CAO does consult with EC on major decisions, but direct interference by EC would be inappropriate under Tsawwassen law and could expose TFN to risks. The CAO recently completed a reorganization of the senior management team, and we've included that organization chart for you in the materials. One of the changes was to separate health and family services so that it had a more dedicated manager while maintaining the close working relationship with family services under the same director. All of that said, health and wellness are major priorities of the TFN government, and there's a lot of activity in this area, with a focus on increasing access to frontline service providers, implementing the community safety strategy, and improving our policies and procedures. On the resolution for limits to member staff involvement for election duties, this was a really interesting resolution that had us digging into all of the roles and responsibilities related to the election. Fair elections are at the heart of TFN's self-government and something that we all take really seriously. So where we landed overall was that there are appropriate guardrails in place already through Tsawwassen law, particularly the Elections Act. Staff roles in an election are very administrative rather than strategic or decision-making. The key safeguard is the election officer, who is responsible for all the critical aspects of delivering the election, such as nominations, voting, vote counting, and enforcing the rules. and the election officer cannot be a member or employee. So once they're selected, any election issues and correspondence will go to that election officer. Until then, we've established a working group that includes the CAO, 2 directors, 2 managers, and a couple of other staff to implement the new Elections Act, as well as other feedback we've heard from members about improving the election experience. And that group will handle any issues or correspondence related to the election in the short term. And then as an action item we're working on now, the CAO is going to send out an email to all staff about the requirements and expectations during an election period. Beyond those 3 from last session, I just wanted to call attention to a couple other updates. So with respect to the resolution to increase quarterly distributions, there was an increase included in this budget. With respect to increases in the post-secondary allowances, EC recently approved a 17% increase in those allowances, and those will be implemented as of April 1st. On the 2 resolutions related to the Community Safety Act, as you know, you've just debated a bill about that in this session, and you also heard from Mary during the Community Safety Strategy update that there's a lot more work ongoing in that area. And also, Executive Council has directed staff to establish a youth council. We're still working on how that will happen, but we expect that the first election process will take place either this fall at the members' gathering or alongside the election of other councils and committees following the election. And Heitschka Squeakle, that is the report on previous resolutions.
Heitschka, Twyla, is there any further expansion on the organizational chart, or is that, do we need any further? I think so. Heitschka. Is there a chart to present? Heitschka.
Yeah, I thought, thank you, Squeakle, thank you, Feather Runner, and Twyla for the excellent presentation. I thought I would just take a minute to give everyone an update of the organizational changes that have happened over the past couple years. It's taken far more time than you want it to, but Twyla was the last kind of piece in the director level of appointments to the team. I'm very proud to say that there are 4 Tsawwassen members on the leadership team. I think it's been a long time and something I thought about when I was chief, about wanting to see that many Tsawwassen people involved in leading our organization. And of course, there's more to go to develop Tsawwassen people. I would say also that before, it was like an urban myth that was starting to unfold when I asked people how many people reported to my predecessor, Braden. It started out at 12 and then was up to 50 by the time I'd finished asking. But it was well over a dozen direct reports to him, which was challenging. So to change our structure, to have more higher level directors reporting to the CAO and having managers report to those directors will help, I think, allow more work to get done without the CAO kind of stopping the flow of things because of too many reports. So trying to keep an eye on how all this is working. It's not written in stone, but it's just in recent months that we actually have that top tier fully implemented. So we're going to watch closely how the structure works. And we'll, of course, think about refinements as time goes by. The only last thing I would say is that there's some more work under Twyla that's going to have to take place that was envisioned under the organizational chart, and that was really in relation to changing from human resources to more of a talent management that would be way more proactive in looking at skills development for staff and for members at large. So I view that as the kind of final frontier that we'll be working on in the next year to kind of really put a lot of energy. I think that's a very important area, and Executive Council and Chief have also really stressed the need to really focus on better supporting staff and members. And so like I said, we're going to be spending the next year starting to ramp that up, but Twyla has had to hit the ground running already, so all in due course. So I just wanted to give you a quick update as to where things are at, and so far I think it's working well. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Haichka.
Haichka Quintiltonat and Haichka Twyla. Legislators, open up the floor for any questions from Twyla's presentation. Legislator Taylor Baker.
Haichka River for the feather and Haichka Twyla for the report. It's always helpful to get the report on previous resolutions and where they're at. I just have a comment and possibly a question. So last year, I was the individual that brought forward the resolution to increase quarterly distributions, and pleased to see it be increased with the help of the Finance and Audit Committee and Executive Council and their support. I'd like to almost change the status if possible to ongoing, maybe an ongoing yearly review that we can do on the quarterly distributions. As a member and as a member of the leadership, like what a privilege it is to look at the almost $100 million budget that we get to, review and debate. This year, it's an honor to be a TFN member. That was previously said in some other legislative sessions, like what an honor it is. But we see so many programs and so many services, and again, we're so lucky that we get to look at all these programs, but they're not directly benefiting every single one of our registered members on TFN. So as I'm brainstorming this last week on other resolutions I'd like to bring forward, I had like 4 to 5 in my head, and I'm thinking, what could I bring forward? And at the end of the day, if we had increased distributions, maybe we wouldn't need some programs and services because it's already covered under our quarterly distribution, what parents can use for their children and things like that. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I look forward to continuing discussions on upping our quarterly distributions. I know we've been told, hopefully there's some success coming in the future on our industrial lands to provide a distribution on the Legacy Trust. I look forward to seeing more details and information on that. But I think with the budgets that we go over every year, we can up it a bit for our members, but that's my perspective. I know we looked at doing that this year, and unfortunately the deficit would have been a bit bigger. So I'm of course in approval for what we've implemented for the $1,250 quarterly for our members, but it'd be nice if we can change that to an ongoing to review every year to see where our financials are at. Haichka.
Haichka Legislature. So Twyla, if you can make sure that you note that and that's maybe put into a report for Executive Council. Do you have any comments or responses to the legislators' comments?
Haichka Squeakle, Haichka to the Feather Runner, and for your comments and question. Yeah, I think, no direct response. I think that's, political ideology at its heart in a way. So that's something that I think every council and legislature will be debating in different ways in terms of how to provide benefit to members. So that's absolutely can bring that feedback inside, noted, and I'm sure that'll be part of all the discussions of the elected leaders going forward.
Haichka, as a policy geek at one end of the table and the other end of the table, there might be some interesting policy research on, direct financial benefits versus program benefits and how that might play out in some planning. So thank you for that. Legislature Kuyakuya, Andrea Jacob.